Yo, what's good, everyone? Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prodigy Podcast. My name is Tyler Anderson. I am your host. And in this episode, we are going to be previewing week 4 of the 2024 NFL fantasy football season. I'm recording this on September 26th, 2024 on Thursday. So we have the Thursday night football game tonight. So we're going to cover that really quick in the beginning. And then we're going to get into the Sunday and Monday games as well. But before we get into anything, before we have a good time here, please make sure to drop a like if you're on the YouTube, or if you can like wherever you're enjoying the podcast, and make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you are listening so that you can become a fantasy football prodigy and get updated with every single episode. We are going to start with the Thursday night football game between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants. So that is tonight as of this recording. If you're listening a little later after posting, this game might have already happened. So I want to keep this very quick and simple. And then we're going to get into the rest of the game. So in New York, it looks like the Dallas Cowboys are 5-point favorites. Over-under is 45 points. Cowboys -5. And the Cowboys have not really looked good. And if you look at the New York Giants and how they've kind of looked after week 1, it hasn't been great, but in week 1, it was sort of a disaster for them against my Minnesota Vikings. But since then, Daniel Jones has actually been stream-worthy. And obviously, Malik Neighbors at wide receiver, the rookie, has been a superstar. We're going to start with the Dallas Cowboys side of the football here as the favorites. So Dak has been a little bit disappointing. I know last week he was amazing. I think he ended up finishing as a quarterback 2 overall. A lot of that production did come in the fourth quarter. I don't want to say it was garbage time because they did actually end up making the game very close. But going into the fourth quarter, if you had Dak on your team, you were like, oh, he was a complete bust. And then, he had a couple touchdowns. They recovered an onside kick that allowed them to have another scoring drive. And the Dallas Cowboys have really owned the New York Giants over the last few years here, since the Cowboys have been good and the Giants have been pretty bad. The Cowboys should win this game, but if you told me that this game was competitive or that the Giants outright won at home, I honestly wouldn't be surprised. This is going to be a good test for the Cowboys to see, are they going to be able to right the ship and get things back on track with their offense and with their team in general? Because if they lose to the Giants, or if it's even particularly close, this Cowboys team is going to be it's going to be a little troublesome in Dallas. But Dak Prescott is still a solid start. He's sort of like a mid to low quarterback 1. In terms of the backfield, it looks like Rico Dowdle is probably the guy that you want to start if you were to start anyone, because Zeke is kind of being phased out. I do think if the Cowboys are leading, which they do have a chance to do in this game, we might see a little bit more Zeke. But overall, I would not be looking to start any of these guys. Rico Dowdle, you could maybe throw in there if you're absolutely desperate and you really don't have any options and you're dealing with injuries, but I'm not looking to target this backfield at all. And then obviously you are starting CeeDee Lamb at wide receiver. He's an every week auto start. He's a superstar. And then at the tight end position, Jake Ferguson came back from injury for the Cowboys last week and actually looked really good. I mean, he put up, He put up 6 for 95, saw 11 targets. And he was a tight end 3 on the week in half PPR, which is the scoring format I'm going to go off of here. So he's essentially a must play at this point, just because the tight end position is so weak. If you have him, I mean, I honestly think you should be considering playing him over guys like Kelsey or Andrews, who have just been so disappointing lately. Those guys are really good and they could make me look foolish, but I would at least highly consider playing Jake Ferguson. So on the Cowboys side, you're playing Dak. Try to avoid the backfield. You're playing CeeDee Lamb, and you're probably playing Jake Ferguson if you have him. I guess you could maybe play their defense as well. Their defense has not looked great. It's looked actually pretty bad. But Daniel Jones is prone to making mistakes. It would be better if the Cowboys were at home, but I think you can get away with playing the Cowboys defense here. And then on the other side of the ball for the New York Giants, Daniel Jones, I'm not looking to start him. If you're in a 2 quarterback league, okay, maybe you might be forced to play him. He's been pretty solid, and the Cowboys defense has not looked good. So if you are in a 2 quarterback league or something, you could do a lot worse than playing Daniel Jones. I know week 1 was terrible, but Weeks 2 and 3 were much better, where he threw a couple touchdowns in both games. And he does run the ball a little bit too. So not someone I'm looking to play, but like I said, if you are in like a 2 quarterback league, it's definitely someone that you could throw in there. And then another guy that I'm actually pretty interested in starting here is Devin Singletary on the Giants side of the ball. The Dallas Cowboys are bleeding points to the running back position. They're historically bad right now at giving up points to running backs. They're giving up the most points to running backs in the NFL right now. Devin Singletary has been really, really solid. And if you didn't draft like a bunch of stud running backs, I really think he's going to be a good play this week. A really solid running back to play in a really good matchup. And he has been great for fantasy. So far on the season, he's a running back 18, averaging 12.7 points per game in half PPR. So definitely someone that is worth starting. If you went really running back heavy, you might have better options, but even in like if you're doing like a DraftKings lineup or something, like he might be worth playing. And then the only other person on the Giants I'm really looking to start here is Malik Neighbors at wide receiver. He has been absolutely incredible for fantasy. Just unbelievable. He is he the wide receiver 1 on the season? I'm looking at rankings on Fantasy Pros. It looks like he's the number 1 overall wide receiver on the season. So you're starting him, and that's that. So this game is actually pretty simple. There's the guys that I mentioned are pretty much the only ones you want to start. Like you could maybe throw Wan'Dale Robinson in there in a deep league. And yeah, other than that, it's pretty much that and then log out. So that's the Thursday night preview. That game is happening tonight. As of this recording, we're going to move on to the Sunday games now. Before we get into those, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more fantasy football content so you can become a fantasy football prodigy. So we're going to start with the Broncos and the Jets. This is a pretty low over-under. The Jets are favored at home by 7.5. It's an over-under of 39.5, so not a ton of expected points here. The Denver Broncos did kind of shock some people with that win over Tampa Bay last week, but I'm not throwing Bo Nix out there on the road against a good Jets defense. I am avoiding this backfield as well. Javonte Williams has been absolutely just not startable for fantasy football. Tyler Bidet, that is how I heard you pronounce his name. He did make some noise last week, so that is just a name to monitor where pick him up, throw him on the end of the bench if you have space. Someone paid like 50 something bucks for him in Dynasty in a $200 budget league, so he could very well carve out a role here, and I think he might develop some trust with Sean Payton because he was being used in a role last week where he was actually like very important to the team. But I don't think he's going to have enough work here where it's going to be relevant for fantasy. But if he was the rushing leader, I would not be shocked. And then Jaleel McLaughlin is still there as well. So I'm not looking to play any of those guys. But if you have Tyler Bidet, just hold him and monitor what's going on. And then Cortland Sutton is really the only other name here. I'm really not looking to play Cortland Sutton. Just because, Sauce Gardner on the Jets is a tough matchup. But Cortland Sutton really is the only actual target in this receiving core that is worth starting most weeks. So if you are like super desperate, maybe you have to play him, but I would be looking elsewhere if I could. And yeah, like Greg Dulcich at tight end, he just hasn't really been getting it done. So I'm not super into that, if I can be honest. So yeah, I'm pretty much looking to avoid all Denver Broncos in this game, unfortunately. It's just not a good matchup, and their weapons aren't great. But if Bo Nix comes out there and looks pretty okay for the Broncos, then maybe it's a name that we can kind of put in that streamer category moving forward. On the other side of the ball, the New York Jets. You have a few options here that are definitely start worthy. Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, he looked really good against the Patriots in week 3 last week. I'm probably not throwing him into my lineup just because I don't know, this game it doesn't project to be super high scoring. If you're in like a 2 quarterback league, maybe you play him as your second quarterback if you're in a super flex. But even if you have Josh Allen and then you have a super flex spot, make sure you put Rodgers in the quarterback spot and then put Allen in the super flex spot, so you do have that flexibility later in the week. Although in a super flex, I guess you would probably play a quarterback regardless, but I don't know, maybe you only have 2 quarterbacks on your roster. But I'm not really looking to start Aaron Rodgers. Breece Hall obviously is an auto start. He's a superstar. You play him each and every week. And then in the wide receiver core, you're kind of looking at Garrett Wilson, and that's pretty much it. Oh, I should have also said Braylon Allen has been carving out a role. The rookie behind Breece Hall. Breece Hall is a must-play running back 1 each and every week. Braylon Allen has actually been seeing a fair amount of touches behind him. Not someone I'm looking to put into the lineup, but if you are dealing with a ton of injuries, which you probably are, or if you're in like a really deep league, Braylon Allen is someone who you could flex, and he's probably going to see, you know, a handful of touches where he's kind of in that running back 3 flex range. Garrett Wilson is an auto start. You're going to play him each and every week. I will say, though, he is going to be matched up against Patrick Surtain for the Denver Broncos, which has been a brutal matchup for wide receivers this season. He's been shutting a lot of good receivers down. And Garrett Wilson, he's been all right for fantasy, but it hasn't been superstar level. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's kind of a disappointing game for Wilson with the low over-under and the tough matchup. But, I mean, unless you went super wide receiver heavy or you just have a really stacked lineup, Garrett Wilson is essentially like a high wide receiver 2 play this week in half PPR, so you're probably throwing him out there. Tyler Conklin is stream worthy. He had kind of a slow start to the season, but last week he looked pretty all right. So weeks 1 and 2, he only had 2 targets and 1 reception in each game for 6 and 10 yards. And then last week against the Patriots, he saw 6 targets, was 5 for 93. So you like that usage, and the Vance Joseph Denver Broncos defense is not all, you know, they're usually a good matchup for tight ends. This year they're not bleeding points to the tight end as much, although tight end points per game is a little wonky, especially with only 3 weeks into the season, but they're giving up the 11th most points to the tight end position. So you probably have better options, but again, deep leagues, DFS, definitely someone to consider. And then, yeah, other than those guys, that's pretty much it. You know, Mike Williams and Alan Lazard for the receivers. I'm not really looking to play them outside of like DFS dart throws, especially if you're doing like a single game lineup where you kind of have to play someone. Maybe one of them catches a touchdown or something. Mike Williams is getting more integrated into the offense, but definitely not people I'm looking to start. We're going to move on to the next game. The Minnesota Vikings at the Green Bay Packers. My Minnesota Vikings are 3-0. We're going to start kind of previewing them. So Sam Darnold at quarterback has been really, really incredible, which is, I don't know. I had some doubts heading into the season, but they've been nothing short of awesome. He's definitely stream worthy. I am nervous that at some point, you know, it's going to come crashing down for Darnold just because of what we've seen throughout his career. But if you look at, you know, Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield, they got put in good situations as highly drafted players who didn't really pan out in the beginning of their careers. And they're really solid NFL players and solid for fantasy. So we might be seeing the same thing with Sam Darnold because the Vikings coaching staff is just awesome. And he's been good without Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson still not playing. So he is a kind of a higher quarterback 2 play. Right now, I'm kind of debating in a league between starting him or Geno Smith or Justin Fields. So he kind of is in that range. Aaron Rodgers out of the backfield. I am looking to put him in the lineup just because he's been so good. And this is a revenge game against the Green Bay Packers. So I am looking to put Aaron Jones out there. You probably are starting him regardless. And the Packers defense doesn't super scare me, and he gets enough touches and involved in the passing game enough where Aaron Jones is a low running back 1, maybe a high running back 2 play this week. Ty Chandler is a backup. I'm not looking to start him, but he might see some touches here. And if anything were to happen to Aaron Jones, obviously Chandler would see a big bump in value. Justin Jefferson is an auto start. Obviously you're going to play him each and every week because he's just an absolute stud, and he's just broken for fantasy football. Jordan Addison is listed as questionable, I'm seeing. I'm not sure what the odds of him playing are. He was limited to open the week. So it's possible that he plays. If he does suit up, I'm probably not going to start him. just because it's his first game back from injury. But if he is out there, that kind of lowers the streaming wide receiver potential for Jalen Naylor. Naylor isn't someone that I'm super looking to play, obviously, except in deep leagues, but he's been catching some touchdowns, serving as a wide receiver too. But yeah, if Addison is back, that kind of nerfs Naylor. I'd probably not be starting either of them. And then, yeah, so streaming Sam Darnold, starting Aaron Jones and Jefferson, and that's pretty much it. I'm not starting Johnny Munt at tight end in any situation, really, unless I'm in like a 32-man league. Sorry, Johnny Munt. I mean, I like Johnny Munt. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but he's just, for fantasy, I think you could do better. On the other side of the ball, Jordan Love. And also, I should have probably said too, I forgot to say, the Packers are 3-point favorites at home, and the over-under is 44. Okay? I could see this game going a couple of different ways, with the Vikings defense being really solid. And we still have to see if Jordan Love for the Packers at quarterback is going to make his return. He played week 1, got hurt at the end of the game. Malik Willis has been starting for the Packers ever since. Obviously, they've been winning games, but the offense has been nerfed with Malik Willis there, just because even though he's been playing well for NFL football, he hasn't really been supplying the wide receivers with the production they need. Jordan Love did practice in pads on Thursday. So he also did that last week, it looks like. So there was a chance that he played last week. So right now it's kind of a situation where you just have to monitor the news. That's kind of the downside of recording these podcasts, is that, as news breaks after recording and posting, I can't go back and change it. But if Jordan Love plays, that just boosts the value of pretty much every offensive weapon on this roster. You can play Jordan Love his first week back, but it is a tough matchup against the Minnesota Vikings, whose defense looks great. I have him in a 2-quarterback league where, I have Dak, I have Goff, I have Justin Fields, and Jordan Love. So in that situation, I might not be forcing him in there, but if you drafted him as your quarterback 1 or 2, you're probably forced to play him in a super flex. But not a bad week if he does play, to maybe put him on the bench and just see what happens, because I doubt they really light up the Vikings. Although, as a Vikings fan, this is normally when the letdown happens, right? When we have confidence in them. But Josh Jacobs, you're putting out there, most likely. He's a solid running back 2 play. He's not in necessarily the best spot, just because, the Vikings defenses look great. They're not giving up a ton of points to the running back position, but he sees enough volume where he's pretty much an auto start, unless you're in like a 10-team league and have a stacked team. But even then, there's probably a spot for Jacobs. And then Jaden Reed and Christian Watson are definitely very tied to the health of Jordan Love. I'm probably not playing Christian Watson in any situation. I kind of want to see him put a couple games together before I really trust him. If Malik Willis does get the start, I'm not touching either of these receivers. Jaden Reed I believe he's also questionable for this game, if I'm not mistaken. Let me read this little injury report here. He's just listed as questionable, but I'm not seeing any actual report on him. He was limited on Thursday with a calf injury. So if he plays with Jordan Love, you could definitely put him out there as like a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, but monitor the news with his health, see if he's active, see if he's limited, and if Jordan Love is out, I'm not playing any of the receivers here, and I'm not touching any of the tight ends either there. Moving on to the next game here, Pittsburgh Steelers, Indianapolis Colts. The Steelers are 1.5 road favorites at the Indianapolis Colts. The over-under is 40 points. I think this could be... The Steelers have been playing a lot of ugly games lately, especially since Big Ben retired. It's been a lot of defensive battles, and with how bad Anthony Richardson has looked the last couple of weeks, I wouldn't be surprised if this is like a lower scoring game. Justin Fields is streamable just because he does have the ability to put up production with his legs. He hasn't been doing it much. He did have a rushing touchdown last week, but not a ton of yards. I believe it was single-digit yardage for him last week, and he hasn't really had like a big running game yet. He's just been kind of doing what he's been asked to do, but he's still sort of like a low quarterback 1, high quarterback 2. Again, I'm debating between guys like him, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold. Jared Goff is in that range. So he's kind of in that range of quarterback. And then at the running back position, Najee Harris is someone, you can put in there. I'm never really excited to start him unless it's a smash matchup, and he usually turns it on later in the year, obviously, but he is a volume running back to play, especially with Jalen Warren dealing with a bit of a knee injury. He's been described as week to week. If he plays, I assume he's going to be very limited, and there's a good chance that he doesn't play. So I think that just more so secures the volume for Najee Harris. And don't be surprised if Cordero Patterson gets in there, gets a handful of touches, and he might even steal a goal line carry or two, just because Arthur Smith is there and he has a thing for Cordero Patterson, obviously. Hey, I'm a Vikings fan, so I mess with Cordero Patterson heavy. And then the only other real guy I'm looking to start for the Steelers would obviously be George Pickens. It hasn't been great for fantasy so far. There's been some tough matchups, but he's a really, really talented player. And this is a Colts defense that is currently giving up the 6th most points to wide receivers. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see kind of his first big game of the season. He hasn't really had a big blow-up game yet, but the targets are there, the talent is there, and it's a pretty solid matchup. It's just a kind of an issue of, are there going to be enough points scored? But even if, the Steelers put up, let's say 20, 24 points, I wouldn't be surprised if Pickens is one of those guys that catches one of those touchdowns. Calvin Austin had the big week last week. I'm not chasing that. And then at tight end, Pat Freiermuth is not someone I'm really wanting to start. Like, I'm in a guillotine league where I have to start him. Trey McBride hit the waiver wire this week because, the team got chopped and all their players hit the waiver wire. And I bid pretty aggressively on him. Like, I still have like a fair amount of money, and I think I bid like upper 100 for him out of $1,000 budget. And someone bid like 202. So I wish I would have got him, but even I believe he's dealing with a concussion of some sort. I'm not sure if he's going to suit up this week. We'll get to that later. But Pat Freiermuth, just given the tight end landscape, he probably slots in as like a tight end 2 that you might actually be able to play and somewhat get away with, but definitely not trying to do it. And then on the other side of the ball, you have Anthony Richardson at quarterback at home, but it's a really, really tough matchup versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm really not looking to put him in my lineup. The Steelers are giving up the fewest points to quarterbacks in the league. And yes, Anthony Richardson can always go off with his legs. So if you don't have like a really solid option to replace him with, you could just throw him out there and hope he runs. But even with his rushing ability, he's been dreadful for fantasy the last couple of weeks here. And, I would be considering like more of those streaming pocket passer options like, Geno, Goff, Sam Darnold. Like, I would not be surprised if they outperform Richardson, but I would say Richardson still has that upside where it's always tough to bench him. But just based on what we've seen, it's been very, very ugly. Jonathan Taylor is someone that you're putting in the lineup regardless, but again, it's a tough matchup, not a high over under. The Steelers are giving up the second fewest points to the running back position. But you're still, you're not going to bench Jonathan Taylor, but definitely kind of temper your expectations this week. He's still a running back 1 play. And then at wide receiver, I'm not playing any of the Colts wide receiver options. They're tough against every position. They're giving up the 4th fewest points to the wide receiver position. I think Michael Pittman Jr. is an extremely talented player, but just with the subpar quarterback play, the tough matchup, and the fact that, he doesn't see like big down the field targets where like, even if he gets like 5 catches, it's not going to be enough to really move the needle for fantasy. So I'm looking to bench Michael Pittman. He's nothing more than like maybe a wide receiver 4 play with very little upside in this matchup. He's talented enough where maybe he gets it done, but other than Jonathan Taylor, I'm really not looking to start any of these Colts players. Josh Downs came back, not looking to start him. Alec Pierce has had some big plays, but I don't think he's going to find much room against the Steelers. And then Adonai Mitchell, the rookie, I'm not looking to start him, obviously. So yeah, not a game I'm really excited about for fantasy. This one is a little bit more exciting. The Philadelphia Eagles on the road against the Tampa Bay Bucks. The Eagles are 1.5 point favorites. The over-under is, what is it at? It's at 43 right now as of this recording. So there's a few things of note here. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense are giving up the 7th most points to quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts is a guy that you're starting each and every week, but his receiving options are dealing with some boo-boos right now. AJ Brown has missed some time. He's missed a couple weeks now with his injury. I'm seeing a report right here 14 minutes ago as of this recording. He wasn't present at the start of Thursday's practice. There's a decent chance that, we don't see him out there, especially with a hamstring injury. Those can be very, very tricky. And obviously, you want him back, but you also want him to be healthy. So I'm reading another report. He missed practice Thursday. And then Devontae Smith also missed practice on Thursday for the 2nd straight day with that concussion. They're both trending towards not playing. So if Jalen Hurts is without AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, his top options are Jahan Dotson, Johnny Wilson, Paris Campbell. Britton Covey looks like he just got put on IR. So it's going to be dicey. You're probably still putting him out there because he can run. But I mean, if you have like Jaden Daniels, I'd probably start Jaden Daniels over Hurts if he's without his weapons. CJ Stroud, you probably don't have both of those guys. I don't think I'd go as far down as like Justin Fields. I'd probably still play Jalen Hurts. Dak Prescott, if you're able to get him somehow, maybe you play him, but it's Thursday night, so you're not going to know the status of those receivers. So it's definitely a tricky situation. I have him in a dynasty league where, I have like Stafford and Trevor Lawrence and Andy Dalton. I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts, but it's not a bad matchup, but the lack of weapons hurts. Saquon Barkley, you're obviously starting him each and every week. I believe he's the number one number one running back in all of fantasy. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are giving up the 6th most points to running backs, which isn't typical for them. They've been in a pretty good run defense lately. Vita Vea, their defensive tackle that kind of stuffs the run. It looks like he has been practicing. If he is back for the Bucs, that'll be a boost to their run defense, but you're still starting Saquon no matter what. I've been spent way too much time talking about Saquon. Like, you're obviously starting him. Don't think about it. Don't think about the matchup. Just start Saquon, especially without those receiving weapons. Like, Saquon could see like literally double-digit targets, and I would not be surprised at all. And Dallas Goedert too. I mean, he is borderline must start. Like, I'm looking at these Fantasy Pros rankings. He's ranked as the number 1 tight end on the week. And with those other guys out, and with him being really great for fantasy last week, I would be starting him over pretty much everyone. Bowers and Ferguson are up there as well. But other than that, I mean, I have Kyle Pitts and Goddard in Dynasty. I am playing Goddard over Pitts. Get that Goddard and Jalen Hurts stack. And yeah, with he's more talented than he gets credit for, I believe. He's just not the number 1 weapon there. But he's going to be called upon in this game, and he's going to have to, be involved if both of those receivers are out. If AJ Brown or Devontae Smith do play, and there's no reports that they're limited, those are both guys that you would obviously start. And then on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers side of the ball, let's start with Baker Mayfield here. I mean, at quarterback, he's kind of in that streaming category at this stage of his career. The Eagles defense hasn't looked great for fantasy. You can stream Baker Mayfield. He's kind of in that category of Darnold and Goff and Geno. He's sort of like a mid quarterback 2 play. Not someone I'm forcing in there, but someone you can put in there. And then at the running back position, this is where things get a little ugly. So Rashad White was a stud last year, catching a ton of passes. It's been rough this season. He's been dealing with a bit of a groin injury, I believe, some sort of injuries. He's been on the field though, but it hasn't turned into a ton of production for fantasy football here. He's been catching a fair amount of passes, but he's the running back 32 on the week, averaging 7.5 points per game. And then the rookie Bucky Irving got in there, and he's been getting more and more involved. A lot of times, both of them are on the field at the same time. I'm not super excited about starting either one of them. But if you have Rashad White, there's a good chance that you sort of have to play him. And I do think there's a chance that he turns it around, but I also do think that there's a chance that, as we get further and further into the season, this could become more of a split where Bucky Irving is, getting more work. He did miss practice on Thursday. Bucky Irving did, after having a limited practice on Wednesday. So, if Bucky Irving is out, that just raises Rashad White's floor a little bit more there. But it's definitely a murky situation. And I think this week is going to say a lot about what the team wants to do. Although with Bucky dealing with an injury, they might limit him even if he is active. And then in the receiving game, Chris Godwin, he has been a stud for fantasy. I told you guys I believed in the Chris Godwin comeback season, and it is definitely happening. The Eagles are giving up the 4th most points to wide receivers, so this is a great matchup. Chris Godwin is essentially a must play at this point. I mean, I can't imagine you're benching him, especially in PPR leagues. He has been finding the end zone a lot, which isn't really his game. But he's a wide receiver 3 on the season, and he was limited at practice on Wednesday with a neck injury. I don't see a report for Thursday, but I haven't heard that it's a serious issue, so it should be all good to go. Monitor the news though, just to make sure. And then Mike Evans was limited on Wednesday as well with a knee issue. Again, it doesn't appear to be serious. If it comes out that it is more serious than initially reported as of this recording, adjust accordingly, but you're probably starting him no matter what. I know he hasn't been great for fantasy lately, but since week 1 pretty much, but he had a tough matchup against Patrick Surtain, I believe, right? Because they did play the Broncos last week. So Surtain, like I mentioned, he's been shutting everyone down. He shut down Mike Evans. He shut down DK Metcalf in week 1. I told you not to panic about Metcalf. What did he do? He's been amazing since then. But yeah, the last 2 weeks, 3 for 42 and 2 for 17 for Mike Evans. I'm throwing him back out there. Between that tough matchup against Surtain and Chris Godwin kind of seeing a lot of the production and borderline stealing those touchdowns, I think Mike Evans is due for a bounce back game, and it's a good matchup here, so we could kind of go off. Jalen McMillan and Trey Palmer are there. I'm not looking to start them. And then K. Dotton at tight end. He had a good week last week after being a non-factor for the start of the season. I'm not looking to start K. Dotton. Maybe in like DFS, you could throw him in there because he does have the occasional good game, but he's not someone that I really have a lot of trust in. So yeah, that's pretty much the overview for that game. We're going to move on to the next game. Carolina Panthers, Cincinnati Bengals in Carolina. It's a revenge game for Andy Dalton, who's getting the start again. He looked really great last week. He was the first quarterback on the year to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, I believe. And then Joe Burrow, I believe he did it on Monday night. I don't know if it was just those two or if anyone else did it after Andy Dalton did it, but they both went off last week, and it shows in the over-under. It's a 47-point over-under. That's one of the highest of the week, it looks like. The Bengals are 4.5-point favorites on the road. Ooh, that's juicy. Because the Panthers, they really destroyed the Raiders last week with Andy Dalton in there. I don't think they're necessarily a great team, but the Bengals are 0-3. You know what I mean? What's the Panthers' record right now? Have they won a game? I don't think. Well, obviously, okay, they beat the Raiders, so they would be 1-2 because they lost their games with Bryce Young, obviously, right? Let's see, Panthers' record. Yep, they're 1-2. Okay, so 47-point over under here. I think let's start with the Bengals side of the ball. So Joe Burrow is someone that can definitely be started. Normally with the Panthers, they're a team where you're blowing them out and you don't need to throw the ball. But with Andy Dalton there, that just means that this team could probably score a lot better than they could with Bryce Young in there. So I'm putting Joe Burrow in there as like a mid to low quarterback 1. So if you have him, you're probably starting him. The Panthers are giving up the 8th most points to quarterbacks on the season. So it's a solid matchup there. And then in the backfield for the Cincinnati Bengals, you have Zach Moss and Chase Brown. This is a really good matchup for Zach Moss because I think this game will either be competitive. I don't know. I was going to say, or the Bengals will be leading. But if the Panthers come out and lead this game, I would not be shocked. But I don't think the Panthers blow out the Bengals. So I think the Bengals will be able to lean on their running game a little bit in this one. And Zach Moss has been really good for fantasy football so far this year. I really like this matchup. The Panthers are giving up the 5th most points to running backs on the season. And like I said, Zach Moss has actually been pretty solid for fantasy. Where does he rank right now? Let me look that up quick. He was kind of one of those guys that I highlighted before the season where there was opportunities in this backfield with Joe Mixon gone. So he's the running back 19 on the year with 12.2 points per game. That sounds about right. He's a solid running back 2 play on the season, and he's a solid running back 2 play this week. I'm not looking to start Chase Brown. You can maybe throw him in DFS. Maybe he gets a big play, but I'm not looking to start him. And then obviously you're starting Jamar Chase no matter what. He's a must play. He does have a questionable tag, but he did practice on Thursday with a shoulder injury. Should be good to go. And then T. Higgins did make his return last week. I don't see any injury report issues with him, so you're probably throwing him out there. Maybe you had some better options with him not being on the field to start the year. Maybe you've already replaced him, but I think he's a solid, wide receiver 2 type of play. With some upside because he always has big play potential, especially with this high over under of 47 points. Higgins is someone that you could throw out there, and he played a fair amount of snaps last week. Like he was 100%. They really waited for him to get back healthy. And yeah, he's someone you can put out there. And then Andre Oshivas, he's been a really good streaming candidate. Probably not looking to play him. He's been a touchdown guy, so maybe he gets in the end zone. You could play him in DFS, but in a regular league, I'm not looking to play Oshivas. And then Mike Gesicki at tight end. Carolina Panthers actually give up the 3rd most points to the tight end position. And with the tight end position being so ugly, you can do a lot worse than Gesicki. Even with T. Higgins back last week, Mike Gesicki saw 5 targets, went 4 for 47. So not super great. Obviously, the week before with no Higgins, he was 7 for 91. But still, just given the landscape of the tight end position, Gesicki is a low tight end 1, high tight end 2 in this game here. And then on the other side of the ball, the Carolina Panthers. Man, so where do we start with this team? It's very interesting with Andy Dalton here. It actually gives them a little potential here. So the Bengals defense really isn't great. I'm still not looking to play Andy Dalton outside of like a 2 quarterback league. If you were weak at the position and you picked him up off of waivers, then that's a situation where, okay, maybe you throw him out there. I put him in some DFS lineups last week just because he was so cheap. You could always employ that strategy where, any quarterback can kind of go off any given week in the right matchup. And so, yeah, that's kind of the case with Andy Dalton. And then Chuba Hubbard. I talked about him before the season as like a really good 0 running back target, and it hadn't worked to this point. But last week, we saw kind of what we wanted. He saw 21 carries for 114 yards and 5 targets for 55 yards and a touchdown. He was a stud running back 1 play last week. And yeah, I would be looking to roll him out as a running back 2 this week against the Bengals, kind of like Zach Moss, sort of in that same range where very solid options, not necessarily must starts, but I could see a lot of situations where you have a guy where it's like, oh, I have to play this guy over Chuba Hubbard, but then Chuba Hubbard ends up being the better play. Miles Sanders as the backup there. He has a role, but I'm not looking to start him. Deontay Johnson lit it up last week. With having a quarterback helps, dude. It's crazy how that happens. Yeah, he saw 14 targets turned into 8 for 122 and 1. And Adam Thielen is on injured reserve now. He injured his hamstring, I believe, on that touchdown catch he had last week. So that just secures his target role even more. So Deontay Johnson is a really solid wide receiver 2 play this week. And then one name I'm going to throw out there that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about is rookie wide receiver Xavier Legette. Not looking to put him in the lineup outside of maybe DraftKings or deeper leagues. But with that Thielen injury, it really opens the door for Legette to have a bigger role. And he was drafted to be like a stud player, and he was drafted high. Jonathan Mingo is their next receiver up. After that, it's David Moore. So Legette should serve as their number 2 wide receiver, field stretching type of option. So not someone I'm looking to play this week, but pick him up if you can and see what happens. And then, yeah, I'm not starting Tommy Tremble or Sanders at tight end. So it's that game is pretty simple. You kind of know who you're starting, and definitely monitor the situation with Xavier Legette, because I think there is potential there that I haven't heard a ton of people talking about. Next game, we got the Houston Texans and the Jacksonville Jags. In Texas, in Houston, the Texans are 6.5-point favorites, and it's an over-under of 45.5 points. After what Jacksonville did against the Bills, where they just looked terrible, I'm not sure that Jacksonville is going to be able to score enough points for this to hit the over-under, to hit the over. But the Houston Texans are giving up the 5th most points to the quarterback position. I'm still not looking to start Trevor Lawrence until he proves that he can actually not look terrible for fantasy. Because against the Bills, that offense just looked uninterested in playing, honestly. Travis Etienne, you're throwing him out there. He's an every week play. Against the Texans on the road, if the Texans do take a lead and Jacksonville isn't able to run the ball, the Texans are a pretty solid defense against the run. It might get ugly for Etienne, but even last week against the Bills, Etienne put up a solid stat line in a game where they were losing throughout. He put up 11 for 68, saw 6 targets, caught 4 for only 17 yards, but in PPR leagues, you get points for those catches. So a guy that you're throwing out there no matter what. Looks like Tank Bigsby is listed as questionable as of this recording. Not someone that you're playing regardless, more of a handcuff to Travis Etienne, but he was limited on Wednesday with a shoulder injury. I'm not seeing a Thursday report. Sometimes that source doesn't have them. Okay, so yeah, I'm only seeing a Wednesday report, but pretty irrelevant regardless. I'm not playing him. And then in the wide receiver, I just laughed because this offense had so much hype and it's just not working. Christian Kirk, he has been pretty dreadful for fantasy. Like, I drafted him in one league thinking he'd be a solid PPR guy, and he just hasn't really done anything for fantasy. But in week 3 against Buffalo, we saw him get 10 targets, went 8 for 79. So you like that, but I want to see them do it again with him before before I put him in a lineup. Maybe if you're dealing with a ton of injuries, you could throw him in there, but he's nothing more than like a wide receiver 3 play for me this week. And then Brian Thomas, I'm excited for the rookie long-term, and he can always break off a big play. He saw 9 targets, went 5 for 48 last week. I'm just not quite there where I'm looking to put him in the lineup. You know what I mean? It's kind of a similar situation as his teammate Christian Kirk, where I really don't want to throw him out there if I have better options, but he can always hit on a big play just because of how talented he is. Evan Ingram, I'm reading a report. He didn't practice on Wednesday with his injury. He's missed the last few weeks since week 1. And there's a good chance that he does not play this week, which would put Brenton Strange in the streaming category. He's been pretty solid for fantasy. Not someone, you probably have better options, but if you're in a deeper league, Brenton Strange is a name that you could possibly throw out there unexcitedly and hope that it works out. Pardon me. Sorry, this Jacksonville team is just making me sick with how kind of disappointing they've been. On the other side of the ball, the Houston Texans at home. I think this is a smash play for some of these options here. CJ Stroud, I'm looking for him to have a bounce back game. It was rough last week on the road against my Minnesota Vikings, tough defense. This week he gets the Jacksonville defense at home, giving up the 2nd most points to quarterbacks. They just gave up 4 first half touchdown passes to Josh Allen last week. He could have had 8, if they had to throw it in the second half. So CJ Stroud is essentially a must start this week. I don't think he's quite in the category of starting each and every week, just because, you probably are just based on the draft capital you invested, but there are matchups and situations where I am kind of worried to start him. But this is a situation where it sets up very, very nicely for CJ Stroud to have a bounce back game after last week. In the running game, it's a little iffy at the moment because we have some injury situations. So I'll kind of give you a lay of the land, the pecking order. Joe Mixon with that ankle injury missed practice on Thursday. There's a good chance he doesn't play. If Mixon plays, I'm putting him out there. Unless there's reports that he's for sure going to be limited, then it would become an issue of, do I have better options? But he's always a threat to score. It's a good offense when he's on the field, and whoever's at running back this week has a good chance of scoring just because I think the Texans will put up points, and Jacksonville is giving up the 4th most points to the running back position. So if Mixon is active, you're probably playing him. If he's not, Dameon Pierce is the next guy up, but he also missed practice on Thursday. If he does not play, we are going back to Cam Akers, who against the Vikings, it didn't work out great for fantasy. He did have a receiving touchdown that saved the day, but they were losing right away in that game. He was only able to get 9 carries, turned into 21 yards. He did see 3 targets and caught one of them for 8 yards and a touchdown. So if he does get the start again, I think it will be better than it was last week, just with the matchup and the better game script potential here with them probably having the lead. Still not someone I'm like super hyped about, you know. It's not like Jordan Mason taking over the job with that electric offense. But Cam Akers, I think, is a, you know, running back 2, running back 3 flex type of play that you can put in there if you are dealing with injuries. And then I just heard before I hopped on to record this podcast in the wide receiver court, Tank Dell, there's a really good chance that he misses this game. And if that is the case with that chest injury, that to me really solidifies the target volume for Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs. Nico Collins is in each and every week start no matter what, because in my opinion, at least, he's the alpha there. He's the number 1 target that I want. Each and every week I'm starting Nico Collins, especially against the Jacksonville defense that I think is going to get lit up this week against the Texans. I'm throwing him out there, but Stephon Diggs, he's been really, you know, solid for fantasy. He finds a way to get it done. And last week he saw 12 targets, caught 10 of them for 94. The week before, 6 targets, 4 for 37. And then week 1, it was 6 targets, 6 for 33, but he caught 2 touchdowns. So there was, you know, the targets and the yardage haven't always been there. Last week we saw the targets and the yardage. Week 1, it was touchdowns. With this wide receiver core, with this trio, it's kind of always a thing of like, how are each of these guys going to find a way to get it done? And if they don't have the targets, if they don't have the big play, if they don't have the touchdown, it might be an ugly week. But with Tank Dell probably not playing, Stephon Diggs moves up the ranks and he's a really, really solid play. You know, guys like Tyreek Hill, like you could maybe play Diggs over him with the quarterback issues for the Dolphins. It's always risky, you know, putting Hill on the bench. And I almost don't even want to put that out there, but you know, it's going to be tough for him without Tua there. So Diggs kind of enters that wide receiver 2 territory where he's definitely a much better start than he was otherwise. Dalton Schultz at tight end is another case where, you know, without Tank Dell there, that kind of would open up targets for him. It looks like though he is questionable. I'm not sure the what's the word? Severity of his status. He was limited on Wednesday with an ankle injury. If he plays, you know, I'm not excited to play him still, but if Tank Dell is out, I do think that helps his case for being a better streaming option, but not someone that I'm like, oh my God, I have to play Dalton Schultz. Next matchup, we have the Rams traveling to Chicago to take on the Bears. It is a 41.5 point over under. The Bears are 3-point home favorites. So let's start with the Rams side of the ball here. It's a tough matchup for the Rams because the Bears do have a solid defense. They're giving up the 3rd fewest points to the quarterback position, and it's not a super high over under with only 41 points. So Stafford is someone I'm probably benching. I am for sure benching in most leagues. Again, I've been saying this for a few guys, but maybe in a 2 quarterback league you have to play him, but I really don't want to. Kyron Williams is an auto start each and every week. The Bears do have a tough defense. They are giving up the 10th most points to the running back position. 3 games in, that's a small sample size. I'm not sure what to make of that, but Kyron Williams, you're playing him regardless. And then obviously, you know, Puka Nacua and those what is the other one? Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp not playing at wide receiver for the Rams. So I'm not really looking to play any of these Rams wide receivers. If I had to pick one, probably Demarcus Robinson, but between him, Tutu Atwell, Tyler Johnson, Jordan Whittington, I'm avoiding them if I can, which you most certainly can. And then Colby Parkinson, it hasn't been great. The tight end position is really weak, so maybe if you're desperate, throw him in as a streamer. But I'd rather have Dalton Schultz. Tyler Conklin is kind of in that same category. Mike Gesicki, you'd probably rather play. Zach Ertz, guys like that. But yeah, tight end is just so disgusting right now. And then I haven't really been talking about the defenses too much, but I should also have highlighted the Houston Texans defenses when you can play. The Bears at home, maybe let's actually talk about defensive plays at the end. I just want to focus on skill position players, and then we can go over like streaming defensive options at the end. So for the Bears, Caleb Williams, he did not look good last week, but he did put up some solid counting stats for fantasy, which ultimately is all that matters. But not looking to play him, even though the Rams do give up the third most points per game to quarterbacks. He's nothing more than like a quarterback 2 play for me. DeAndre Swift, I really don't want to play. He's been really bad for fantasy. I would be looking to bench DeAndre Swift. Hopefully you have a better option. I mean, you probably do. You know what I mean? Like Cam Akers, like I'd probably play Cam Akers, if he's out there. Roshan Johnson was kind of eating into his workload last week with Travis Homer on injured reserve. So monitor to see what Roshan does, see if his workload goes up. That'll be very interesting to see. And then in terms of the wide receivers, DJ Moore is someone you can throw out there. The Rams are giving up the second most points to wide receivers. We'll have to see if Keenan Allen plays, coming back from that heel injury. To me, that limits DJ Moore a little bit. But if Keenan Allen is back out there, I'm probably not wanting to play Keenan Allen. It's a good matchup, so there's a chance he does well, but coming back from that injury, I'd be a little worried. But DJ Moore, I'm also worried about him too. Like, this whole Bears offense just hasn't looked great. And Caleb Williams, I think there's a chance that, he looks better as the season goes on, but he hasn't looked good yet. And rookie quarterbacks in general, they're not great for wide receivers. And when you have 3 wide receivers between DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome Odunze, who did have a good week last week and is someone we're going to talk about next, it just can get murky. But DJ Moore is a kind of a wide receiver 2 play, and I like him more if Keenan Allen is out. Rome Odunze had a really solid performance last week, where he put up 6 for 112 and one touchdown on 11 targets. So, you can put him out there if you need to, but there's a good chance you have better options. But if Keenan Allen is out, he's not a terrible start. I feel like I'm not hyping him up enough. Like, he's not a bad start, Rome Odunze. And then Cole Kmet sighting last week. What the heck? He had an awesome week last week. He's a low tight end 1 play for me. After that really big week, the Rams are giving up the 4th most points to tight ends. Gerald Everett kind of started the year seeing more routes than Cole Kmet, which was weird to me, but it's been getting better for Cole Kmet, and he's kind of taken over back as like the guy you want. So week 1, he saw 1 target, turned into 1 for 4. Week 2, he saw 5 targets, turned into 4 for 27. And then last week, 11 targets, turned into 10 for 97 and a touchdown. His snap percentage has gone from 48 to 77 to 81. So Cole Kmet's the guy. And I think he's a really solid streaming option this week, especially, like I said, if Keenan Allen doesn't play, then that just lifts him up even more. Oh, yeah, that game is a tough one. That's a tough game. It could go a lot of different ways, especially if Keenan Allen is back out there. We're going to move on to the next game. The New Orleans Saints travel to the Atlanta Falcons for a divisional matchup. The Falcons are 2.5-point home favorites, and it's an over-under of 42. Derek Carr tricked us. I made him a start of the week after that hot start. It was a great matchup against the Eagles, and he laid an egg. I'm not looking to start Derek Carr if I can help it. The Falcons looks like they're giving up the 10th most points to quarterbacks, so not super great, not bad. Alvin Kamara, I told you guys, he was my guy at the running back position. I hope you listen to me because he's a stud. He is on the injury report with a hip and rib issue. I don't believe it's serious, but if he's active, you're playing him no matter what. If he's not active, Jamal Williams would see more work. But if Kamara plays, he is an auto start. no matter what, even though the Falcons are giving up the third fewest points to the running back position. The reason I made Kamara a my guy, even though the Falcons are giving up, what was it? Third most points to the running back position. And the reason I made Kamara a my guy is that it doesn't matter the matchup. It doesn't matter his efficiency. He's going to see touches. He's going to see targets. So volume is king in fantasy, and Kamara is the king of volume. In the wide receiver room for the New Orleans Saints here, Chris Olave, you're throwing out there. It was good to see him have a good week last week against the Eagles. He's a borderline wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 play. And then a tougher play is Rashid Shaheed. He had been really solid to start the year. 3 for 73 and a touchdown, 96 and 4 for 96 and a touchdown. Weeks 1 and 2 on only 5 and 4 targets. He saw 5 targets again against the Eagles, but he didn't catch a single one, so he goosed you. I would try to look elsewhere, but he can always hit a big play. So if he is on your team and you really are dealing with injuries, you can still put him out there, but not someone I'm looking to play just because he doesn't see a ton of targets. So if he doesn't hit on that big play or get in the end zone, it's not going to be good. And then at the tight end position, it's kind of a mishmash of players. You got Foster Moreau, you got Taysom Hill, you got Jawan Johnson. I'm not looking to play any of these guys. So pretty much it's Kamara and Olave are the only guys I really want to start out of that Saints roster. And then for the Falcons, there's a few guys that I'm looking to start here. Kirk Cousins at quarterback. I don't want to start him, but I do want to see him play well and keep moving this offense and get the ball to those skill position players. Bijan Robinson is an auto start. Obviously, you're playing him each and every week. Saints run defense can be stingy, but he sees enough volume and sees passing game work where you're going to play him. And then Drake London, you are probably throwing him out there. More of a wide receiver 2 play. Saints secondary can be a little tough, especially with Lattimore out there. I know he was dealing with an injury, but I do believe Lattimore is back. And that's always a tough matchup. So I wouldn't be surprised if Drake London has a down game. And there is a chance, where, if you have Stephon Diggs, like maybe you put him in over Drake London, type of thing. If you have Deontay Johnson, all of a sudden you're considering him or, Drake London in a tough matchup. It's always tough in these matchups where it's like you have a talented player like Drake London and you almost feel like you have to play him. But you do know that the matchup is tough. And like I said, the over-under is 42 points, so not super high. And then Darnell Mooney, he's been actually a solid streaming type of wide receiver. You could throw him in a flex if you're in like a deeper league or have injuries, but not like, oh my God, I need to play Darnell Mooney. I think Kyle Pitts, it's been rough for the tight end position, Kyle Pitts included. He's been, all right, but not what you were hoping for. He's still ultimately like a mid tight end 1 play just because of the landscape of the tight end position. Like, you're probably playing him. And he's talented enough where he could have a play that makes his week all right. But yeah, it's ugly in the streets. We're going to move on to the later afternoon games. Before we do that, please make sure to subscribe or follow wherever you are enjoying the podcast for more fantasy football content. Next up, we got the San Francisco 49ers at home against the New England Patriots. They are 10.5-point favorites at home. The 49ers are 40.5 point over under. So we're going to start with the 49ers side of the ball here. Brock Purdy had himself a week last week. You can start him. He's always a solid option. Not super excited about it. But the Patriots are kind of middle of the pack in terms of points given up to quarterbacks. Same with running backs, but if you have Jordan Mason, you're likely throwing him out there. He's a running back 1 play this week, especially in a game where they're favored. He's going to see a ton of volume and really be good for fantasy. Sorry to all my fellow Christian McCaffrey managers out there. It's sad, but it's true. Anyone who's in that backfield is going to be good. You know what I'm saying? Like they're going to be solid. Deebo Samuel is listed as doubtful for this game. So I am once again going to encourage you to play Brandon Ayuk. It didn't work out well for fantasy last week, and it hasn't worked out well all season. What's their cornerback's name? Gonzalez, I believe, is his last name. If he's matched up against Ayuk a lot of this game, that could be tough for Brandon Ayuk. Yeah, Christian Gonzalez. He's probably going to get shadowed by Gonzalez, who's a really good corner for the Patriots. So Ayuk, we could see another week of him struggling, but just with the lack of weapons there, with Debo out, there's a good chance that Ayuk sees enough to be all right. George Kittle, is he expected to play this week? Because he missed last week. He practiced limited practice on Wednesday, so we'll see. It's looking like it's speculating that there's a good chance that he misses. So especially if he misses, Ayuk should see some targets. But Jawan Jennings, the number one wide receiver on the week last week, I made Ayuk the official start of the week, but I also did say in that segment you can also play Jawan Jennings. So I'm going to take the W on that. I told you to play him in DraftKings and daily fantasy. He saw 12 targets, turned into 11 for 175 and 3 touchdowns last week. Jawan Jennings. Yes, that Jawan Jennings. He was the wide receiver 1 on the week. I'm looking to put him out there. I mean, like, he, Christian Gonzalez is probably going to shadow Brandon Ayuk for this game. So as the number 2 target, not getting that number 1 wide receiver coverage, I really like Jawan Jennings this week as a really solid wide receiver 2 play. I would really try to put him in my lineup. You might have guys that you kind of have to put in over him, but I think I don't expect him to be the wide receiver 1 overall on the week, but I mean, I think he's a really good bet for, 5+ catches and, upper double digit yardage, maybe even 100 yards, maybe gets in the end zone, because this team is going to score, and, Mason will probably get in the end zone. And after that, it's between Ayuk and Jennings as guys that you really want to count on. So I'm looking to, even though I'm not ranking him as like a wide receiver 1, he is someone that I am trying to find a way to put him in my lineup, unless your team is just absolutely stacked. Like, I'm really excited about Jawan Jennings. I picked him up in Dynasty and I played him last week and it worked out really well. So I know he was on a lot of benches, but I would try to put him out there. On the Patriot side of the ball, it's very simple. You are not playing Jacoby Brissett. Ramondre Stevenson, you're probably putting him back out there as like a running back 2. There's a good chance though that you have better options. Like, he's a really solid player, and like I would be trying to get him in my lineup, but the 49ers are kind of middle of the pack running back points given up. Looks like they're ranked 12th. So I'm not super excited about Ramondre, but he's like kind of flex worthy running back 2 play. And then I'm not playing anyone else on the Patriots. Like, it's literally Ramondre Stevenson and then log out. Demario Douglas, like if you're in like a 16 or 18 team league, maybe you can put him out there and hope he PPRs his way to some production. Hunter Henry, he's always viable to like maybe have a good game, but he wasn't super involved. He had a big game in week 2. And then he just wasn't super involved in week 3, only 2 for 9 after 8 for 109 in week 2. So I'm not looking to play Hunter Henry. And I already spent too much time on the Patriots. So only looking to maybe play Ramondre. A game that is very exciting though. I believe this is the highest over-under of the week, if I'm not mistaken. The Washington Commanders traveling to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. The Cardinals are 3.5 point home favorites. The over-under is 50 points, and I believe that's the highest of the week that I can see. Yeah, that looks like the highest. So this is a game I do want pieces of. Let's start with the Washington Commanders, the road team here. Jaden Daniels, he's entering must-start territory. The conundrum is like, maybe you drafted Kyler Murray, for example, or any one of those upper echelon quarterbacks, and then you also took Jaden Daniels later in the draft because he wasn't going super early. Then it becomes a situation where, okay, who do I play? But I would probably play Kyler Murray over Jaden Daniels, and then Josh Allen as well, and then maybe Lamar Jackson. But, I would play Jaden Daniels over Jalen Hurts, Jaden over Jalen, just with Jalen's weapons being injured and maybe not playing. Stroud I really love Stroud this week, but I'd probably play Jaden Daniels just with the higher over-under and the rushing upside, over Joe Burrow, over Dak, over Mahomes, over Fields. And then, so Jaden Daniels is essentially a must start. Cardinals give up the 11th most points to the quarterback position. It's supposed to be a high-scoring game. So, Jaden Daniels, get him out there. Austin Eckler got concussed last week. He is going to miss this game. So Brian Robinson should see more of the work. Cardinals are giving up the 9th most points to the running back position. I tried to pick up Robinson in my guillotine league, and I did not get him, but he's a solid upper running back 2 play this week. And wouldn't be surprised if he sees a ton of volume in this one and maybe gets more involved in the passing game, even with Austin Eckler not there. And then the only other commander I'm really looking to start would be Terry McLaurin at wide receiver. We finally saw him have a good week last week. That was awesome to see. I mean, Jaden Daniels is looking really solid, but even with that being said, Terry McLaurin saw 6 targets, 4 for 100 and a touchdown. He had that long touchdown that kind of saved his week. But he's the only weapon in the passing game that I'm looking to start. It wasn't great before that, and if he doesn't catch that touchdown, you're disappointed yet again. So I don't want to take that away from him, and I do think as Jaden Daniels gets better and better, this connection will only strengthen. I traded for Terry McLaurin before the season in the league. I think I traded Jacoby Myers and Gus Edwards for him. So I'm excited about Terry McLaurin's outlook, but he's still kind of like a wide receiver 2 flex play for me. But just with the upside of this game, I could definitely see him hitting on a big play or two where he's worth considering, as long as you don't have locked in more trustworthy options. And then I got to bring up his name too. Zach Ertz. He's a high tight end 2 play, kind of in that Gesicki, Dalton Schultz, Colby Parkinson, Tyler Conklin range. He's probably not going to have a big game, but I believe this is a revenge game, right? He still play for the Cardinals, and you never know. He's not really a touchdown threat at this point, but he could always fall in the end zone. But he's probably not going to have a ton of yardage, but he'll probably have a handful of catches and PPR's way to a technical tight end 1 finish where he's top 12, but he has 5 points. But you know what? Man, I don't know. Tight end is it's just so gross. And then on the Cardinal side of the ball, Kyler Murray, you're playing him no matter what. Auto start. James Conner, you are putting him out there. I know it was rough last week, but that was against the Detroit Lions. Now he's taking on a Commanders defense that is not nearly as talented as that Lions defense. Especially, the Lions just shut down the running game. So I know it was rough last week, but I'm putting James Conner back out there, especially with his high over-under as sort of a low running back 1 play. And then in the wide receiver game, Marvin Harrison Jr., he's an auto start. He is listed as questionable right now, but I don't think it's anything too concerning. He's dealing with a quad injury, but it looks like he's going to be available. Hopefully it's just precautionary that, he's listed as questionable. And he should be fine. High over under. He's a wide receiver 1 play as long as he's active. And then after that, either Michael Wilson or Greg Dortch could have a good week. Who it's going to be, I'm not sure. I'm not really excited to play either one, but one of them might have a solid game. So DFS, deep leagues, maybe throw one of them in there if you don't have locked in options, but wouldn't be surprised if one of them, kind of had a bad week. And then Trey McBride, didn't practice Wednesday with a concussion. It's looking like there's a fair chance he doesn't play. Just monitor the news. If he's active, you're starting him because a concussion shouldn't impact his ability to play football unless, maybe there's some sort of equilibrium, brain type thing going on. But for the most part, it's not like a hamstring injury where you're going to be slower. You know what I mean? If he's out there, it's a good matchup, high over under. You're playing him. If not, it's pretty much Kyler Murray, James Conner, Marvin Harrison Jr., and then maybe you could stream Wilson or Dortch. Elijah Higgins is a name to bring up, maybe in DraftKings, where if you believe in this over-under and you kind of want to get a little unconventional with your lineup and differentiate it. Higgins, he caught a touchdown in week 2. Maybe he catches a touchdown, but not anyone I'm touching in a regular league. We're gonna move on to the next game. Kansas City Chiefs traveling to the Los Angeles Chargers. This game, I think it's there's a good chance that it's ugly. I really do. It's a 40-point over-under. Looks like the Chiefs are 7-point road favorites. That's pretty shocking, but I think a lot of that has to do with Justin Herbert being uncertain to play. If Herbert doesn't play, I mean, I don't really want any part of this Chargers offense. I mean, who would you even start? Like maybe J.K. Dobbins, but I could see the game being ugly for him even. It looks like the Chiefs are giving up let's see, they're giving up the fourth fewest points to running back. So Dobbins is someone who I do believe in long term as being the guy there, as long as he stays healthy. But I'm trying to look elsewhere if I can in a tougher matchup in a game where, especially if Herbert is out, the offense is probably going to struggle to move the ball. So you might not have better options than Dobbins, but he's kind of in that Ramondre Stevenson category of you might have to play him, but I'm not excited about it. If Herbert does miss, Taylor Heineke is going to get the start. I wouldn't be playing Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnson, or Ladd McConkey in that case. And even if he does play, if Herbert does start, none of those guys I'm excited about. I mean, one of them could catch a touchdown. Quentin Johnson's been getting in the end zone a little bit, but yeah, it's ugly. I don't really want to talk about this game anymore. I'm not playing Will Disley or Hayden Hurst. Let's go to the Chiefs side of the ball where there's at least maybe a little bit of excitement, but I don't know, man. The Chiefs they're not like this high flying offense like they used to be. Like Mahomes is still probably the best quarterback in the league, but for fantasy, it's just not something that's like, oh, the Chiefs are playing, take the over. Like, no. The Chargers have a solid defense. They're giving up the 1, 2, 3, it's like the fifth fewest points to the quarterback position. If you have Mahomes, you're probably playing him, but like, I would be playing Jaden Daniels over Mahomes. I'd be playing Stroud over Mahomes, Joe Burrow probably, even Dak Prescott. Like, he's been struggling too, but I think that game between the Giants and the Cowboys at least has a chance to be pretty high scoring. So I don't know if I'd go lower than that, but yeah, I'm not super like excited about Mahomes this week. Carson Steele with that injury to Isaiah Pacheco on injured reserve. Carson Steele led the team in carries last week. He had 17 carries. You love that. Saw 62% of the snaps, 17 for 72. Saw 2 targets, caught 1 for 2 yards. Samaje Perine got in there. He caught a few passes. 6 for 25 on the ground, had 4 targets, 3 for 15. Kareem Hunt, I do believe, was activated off the practice squad. I thought I heard that. For some reason, I'm not seeing a report that says that, but I don't think Kareem Hunt is going to factor in too heavy if he does play. I mean, I'm just kind of avoiding this backfield. Maybe he wasn't elevated. Let me look this up for you guys. I probably should have known this before, but I'm seeing nothing about him being elevated. Okay. Well, either way, I'm avoiding this backfield. If I had to pick one, it's Carson Steele, but yeah, it's going to get messy, especially when Clyde Edwards-Helaire comes back. I could see it being very messy. And then in terms of the wide receivers, Rashee Rice, very excited to play. Again, the Chargers have a good defense, but Rashee Rice has just been so amazing for fantasy. What is he on the season? He's the wide receiver, let's see, 4 on the season in half PPR. So he's an auto start, pretty much regardless of the matchup. He is Patrick Mahomes' #1 target. Xavier Worthy as a rookie isn't really commanding too many targets, and Travis Kelce, huge disappointment for fantasy and just football so far this year. So the only person I'm really excited to start on the Chiefs and pretty much this whole game would be Rashee Rice. Travis Kelce, if you have him, you're probably playing him because you drafted him so early. But I'd start Jake Ferguson over him. I'd probably play Dallas Goedert over him. You probably don't have Bowers, but I play Bowers over him. Kincaid, probably starting Kincaid over Kelce. And then once you get to the Kyle Pitts, Mark Andrews range, that's where it's kind of like, okay, maybe I'll just lean Kelce because of, we know he's great and maybe he, turns it on for a game. But yeah, it's been really rough for Kelce managers. Moving on to the next game, though, Cleveland Browns at the Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders are 2-point home favorites, and this is a gross 37-point over-under. I'm not really looking to target this game if I can help it. There are some options that are starts, but for the most part, I don't really want to target this game like in DraftKings or anything, just because of that low over-under. Deshaun Watson, I'm not looking to start. Jerome Ford kind of reclaimed his role as the starter over Deontay Foreman. But the Raiders do give up the second most points to the running back position, so that's good. Jerome Ford was dealing with a bit of a knee injury. He did return to practice on Thursday, so if he's active and good to go, assuming that Deontay Foreman doesn't pull another stunt where he has more carries, I'm playing Jerome Ford as a low running back to flex type of play. And then other than that, Amari Cooper is a guy that you're putting out there no matter what. I shouldn't say no matter what. You might have enough options to bench him, but Amari Cooper, I was telling you guys, like, weeks 1 and 2, it didn't amount to much for fantasy, but he saw the targets and he had a couple bad drops. And then week 3, he put together a good game. Saw 12 targets, turned into 7 for 86 and 2 touchdowns. So against the Raiders, who give up, it looks like the 10th most points to wide receivers. Amari Cooper is a solid play as a wide receiver too. Maybe Jerry Jeudy in deeper leagues, you're starting him as like a deeper flex play. But I'm not playing Elijah Moore. And then David Njoku is listed as questionable. I'm still waiting on his status to get ruled out to put him on a couple IRs, but he did practice on Thursday. So he does have a chance to play if he is active. I'm probably throwing him back out there right away because, I mean, unless you have like Jake Ferguson, I'd probably play Ferguson over him. But maybe Cole Kmet you can make a case for. Yeah, that's probably about it. Like if you have Njoku, you're probably starting him. And then on the other side of the ball for the Raiders, it's been a bit ugly for the Raiders. I'm not starting Gardner Minshew, obviously, at quarterback. Hopefully he can get the ball to his weapons, though, but not relevant for fantasy himself. I'm not looking to start either of these running backs. The Browns are kind of middle of the pack in terms of points given up to running backs, but Zamir White just hasn't been getting it done. Nothing but like a very, very desperate play. Same with Alexander Mattison. He's been randomly scoring touchdowns, but I'm not chasing that, especially in the game with a 37-point over-under. I just don't want any part of that. Devontae Adams is someone that you are putting out there. The over-under in this game does kind of scare me, but he's still a solid, wide receiver, like high wide receiver 2 type of play. And the coach did come out and say, like, some people were making business decisions, so the team is going to make business decisions. I don't know if that. A lot of people were speculating he was talking about Devontae Adams. I don't know if that means we see Devontae Adams get like benched for part of the game. That's complete speculation. Just something to say, like, tough matchup. Maybe there's some sort of discipline to him, just completely based on rumor and speculation. But could that happen? Possibly. Very out there prediction, not necessarily even a prediction, but I could see it going wrong for Devontae Adams, even if he plays the whole game. Just because. But he's talented enough where you're playing him, but I don't expect a lot of points in this game. Jacoby Myers, I'm not looking to start. It was good to see him have a solid game. I traded him in that one league with Gus Edwards for Terry McLaurin, like I said, and then I did drop him in another league early in the year, but he saw 9 targets, turned into 7 for 62 and a touchdown. He's a solid player where I think he'll have his weeks here and there, but I don't think you're ever going to know when it's going to come. And then with Brock Bowers and Devontae Adams there, he's the number 3 target at best, so I'm not really ever looking to start him unless I'm very desperate, and especially in a game against the Browns, low over-under, I'm not looking to play Jacoby Myers. Trey Tucker had a solid week last week. He's kind of like a deeper dynasty play. I did have him at one point, and I did trade him to acquire some kind of win-now pieces, but he saw 9 targets, turned into 7 for 96 and a touchdown. I'm not chasing that, but in dynasty leagues, he's definitely someone worth picking up and seeing what happens long term, but I'm definitely not playing him this week. And then Brock Bowers, I mean, if you have him, you're starting him. It was a little disappointing last week, but you can make a case that he's the best tight end to have in fantasy right now. even though he is a rookie, and you're pretty much playing him no matter what. If you drafted him as high as you had to draft him to get him, you are starting him. So yeah, that game is very disgusting. Outside of like Jerome Ford, Amari Cooper, Bowers, and Devontae Adams, not super excited about the other options. We're going to move on to the Sunday night football game. This game is actually pretty exciting here. We got the Ravens at home taking on the Buffalo Bills. The Ravens are 1-2 right now, so they need a win, and the Bills are 3-0. So the Ravens are 2.5-point home favorites. The over-under is 46.5. Let's start with the Baltimore Ravens. You are playing Lamar Jackson no matter what, just because he's a stud. He gets it done on the ground. He's been really good. He's been getting it done. So you're playing Lamar Jackson no matter what. This could be a high-scoring game. And then the Bills are giving up the 7th most points to running backs. You're playing Derrick Henry pretty much every week no matter what, but in a pretty decent matchup game that could be high-scoring, I like him as sort of a low running back 1 play, probably a good bet to score a touchdown. And then in the wide receiver game, Zay Flowers is someone that's worth starting as a wide receiver 2. I actually recently traded. Who did I trade for him? Tank Dell. Before week 3, someone sent me a trade where I gave them Tank Dell. They gave me Zay Flowers. I took them up on that offer. I did not know that Tank Dell was going to miss the following week when I made that trade. But yeah, Zay Flowers is starting for me in that league. The Bills are giving up the 5th fewest points to wide receivers. But with the over-under being pretty decent and him being kind of the number 1 wide receiver target there, Zay Flowers is probably someone that you can start. I'm not going to say he's a must start because you could have a stacked team. And yeah, I'm reading a stat right now. Buffalo has allowed the fewest PPR points per target and receiving yards per game to perimeter wide receivers. I will say they did play a Dolphins team where Tua got knocked out early and they struggled. And then they played Jacksonville, who looked terrible, and their offense has been struggling. So I do want to give the Bills credit, but their schedule probably has played some sort of role with them dominating receivers. But I mean, in week 1, that was the team that limited Marvin Harrison to that 4-yard performance. So the Bills defense is definitely looking solid. I don't want to take anything away from them. So there is some reason to be concerned about Zay Flowers, but solid little wide receiver 2 play. He's an electric, explosive player. Rashad Bateman and Nelson Aguilar, I'm not looking to start. And then Mark Andrews at tight end. I mean, it's been so bad for fantasy. I mean, he is the tight end 30 on the season. If you have him, you're probably starting him though. He got goosed last week. His snap percentage has been going down from 74 to 63 to 33. He wasn't running a lot of targets. It looks like he had a 23.5 route share. Only saw 1 target in the game. Yeah, it's I don't know what's going on with him. Week 2, there was some optimism. So week 1, he was 2 for 14 on 2 targets. Week 2, he saw 5 targets turn into 4 for 51, which isn't great, but it's like, okay, he's involved. And then last week against the Cowboys, he goosed. So, and only saw 1 target. So if you have him, you're probably playing him. I'd probably play Kyle Pitts over him. I doubt you would have both of them, but maybe you have Jake Ferguson somehow. I would probably play Ferguson over Andrews, but if you have Mark Andrews, I think at this point you just kind of have to stick with it and hope he turns it around. So that's the Sunday night game. And then do we have 2 Monday night games again? Oh, good golly. And one of them is Dolphins hosting the Titans? Yuck. Okay, well, we'll talk about that, I guess, sadly. Yeah, the yuck. Dolphins are hosting the Titans. Dolphins are 1-point home favorites. Interesting. Okay. Over-under is a gross 36.5. Oof. Okay, where do we start with the Dolphins here? So, the Dolphins did just sign Tyler Huntley. Skylar Thompson was starting for them after that Tua injury, but he got banged up. I'm not sure if he's going to play. I don't even know who's going to start for this team, to be honest. Like, I thought I heard there was a chance that Tyler Huntley might start. They have Yeah, there's no decision made yet. I mean, Tim Boyle is on the roster too, so no matter who starts, I'm very worried about the fantasy options here. Devon Achan is good enough where you are probably playing him. He's sort of like a low running back 1, high running back 2. He should see a few targets, but yeah, I'm worried about this offense like moving the ball and being able to score. The Titans, they're the 11th. They give the 11th most points to running backs, but that doesn't really mean much to me. Raheem Mostert, he could return, but I'm not looking to play him after his concerning usage that we saw in week 1 and coming back from that injury. So I'm taking a wait and see approach with him, but definitely worth rostering. And then Tyreek Hill is really the only other option I'm looking to play just because he's Tyreek Hill. At this point, he's more of a wide receiver 2 option with the quarterback play and the low over under of this game. The Titans are giving up the 3rd fewest points to wide receivers. So Tyreek Hill, you're still probably rolling him out there, but don't expect super big things just because of the QB and the low over under. And then Jalen Waddle, he's someone that you're probably looking to bench. I mean, he's sort of more of a wide receiver 3 or flex at this point. Last week with Skylar Thompson starting, he was 4 for 26 on 5 targets. Tyreek Hill was 3 for 40 on 5 targets. So yeah, there's a lot of downside here. Not starting any of the tight ends with Jonnu Smith or Smythe, but yeah, I'm really not looking to start anyone except for Achan and maybe Tyreek Hill, but those guys even have limited upside with the bad situation there. And then for the Tennessee Titans, it's another ugly side of the ball. I'm kind of just looking to avoid this game, in all honesty, if I can. Will Levis has really not been doing well for fantasy, to put it lightly. He's not someone I'm looking to start. Tony Pollard, I finally put some faith in him and kind of the industry as a whole, kind of propping him up last week against the Packers, and he came out and really didn't do much. He's still like a lower end running back 2 play. And the Dolphins are giving up the 3rd most points to running backs, but I'm not like excited to start him, but he is startable. Tajay Spears is kind of the true backup there, more of a handcuff, not looking to start him. And then in the wide receiver room, things are getting a little murky there just because, to start the year, DeAndre Hopkins was dealing with injury and not super involved. And Calvin Ridley was kind of the true alpha. Like week 1, Calvin Ridley saw 7 targets, only turned into 3 for 50, but you love the 7 targets. And then week 2, he saw 6 targets, turned into 4 for 77 and a touchdown. He even had 1 rush for 10 yards and a touchdown. And then in week 3, complete 180, only 3 targets, turned into 1 catch for 9 yards. Meanwhile, DeAndre Hopkins, who had been playing very sparingly to that point, he came out and he had a really good week. He saw 1 and 2 targets in weeks 1 and 2, single-digit receiving yardage with 1 catch each of those weeks. And then week 3, he comes out, 7 targets, turned into 6 for 73 and a touchdown. Very interesting, too, because his snap percentage went from 27 to 44 weeks 1 to 2. And then from weeks 2 to 3, it went from 44 to 46. So his snap percentage didn't really go up. But I guess I am reading a little blurb here, and that game did get out of hand, and it looks like he was playing more of a full-time role before the game got kind of out of hand, because the Packers did. I guess, yeah, the Packers did kind of take it to the Titans. So I guess that would kind of explain that. So Hopkins' role is kind of growing, so they're going to kind of cannibalize each other a little bit here, where I don't know if Will Levis is going to be able to get them the targets they need each and every week, especially in a game with a low over-under. And then you have Tyler Boyd there still, who's going to get a handful of targets and be more of a thorn in the side of the other weapons there than being relevant himself. And then Chig, whoa, that was a crazy ch sound I just made. But Chig Okonkwo, not looking to play. So yeah, I spent too much time talking about that game. I mean, I'm just avoiding it for the most part. Some guys, like Calvin Ridley, Hopkins, Tyreek Hill, Devon Achan, they're worth talking about, but yeah, it's an ugly game. So we're going to move on to the last game here. The Detroit Lions hosting the Seattle Seahawks. This game is a little more exciting. The Detroit Lions are 3.5 point home favorites. The over-under is 46. So this game I am very excited about. We're going to start with the Detroit Lions. So Jared Goff has been actually pretty poor for fantasy, very disappointing. He's had home games. He's had a road dome game, I believe, and he's been pretty bad in all of them. Bad to average. So theoretically, I would be excited about this game. Like, it's a home game that should be somewhat high scoring, but he hasn't been really getting it done. So I'm not looking to force him into any lineups. He's still a higher end quarterback 2 play, but the Seahawks are actually giving up the 4th fewest points to quarterbacks, it looks like. So their defense is a little more stingy than maybe we thought. But obviously it's a small sample size at this point. So we'll see kind of midway through the year what the true picture is. But yeah, I'm looking to really play Gibbs and Montgomery in that backfield. Both are startable. I have not been able to actually play Montgomery in one of my leagues because I have, like, quote, better options, but Montgomery is still a really solid running back 2 play each and every week. Like, I have Alvin Kamara, James Conner, and James Cook in one of my leagues, so I play 2 of them at running back and then 1 in the flex. So there's no room for Montgomery for me, but for most teams, like, Montgomery is someone that I want to start. Like, I just wish I could put him in my lineup. You know what I mean? So Montgomery is in there as a running back 2. He's been scoring a lot of touchdowns. And then Jahmyr Gibbs is a solid play as well. A low running back 1 play. Yeah, you're starting both of those guys pretty much in most situations. And then same with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Start him no matter what. He's an auto start, high-end wide receiver 1. Seahawks are actually giving up the 2nd fewest points to wide receivers, but I don't really care. Jameson Williams, you can throw him back out there. It was a hot start to the season. Last week, he came back down to earth with only 1 catch for 9 yards on 3 targets. But just with the potential of this game being high scoring, you can stream him. I like him as sort of like a low wide receiver 2, high wide receiver 3 flex play type of guy. And then Sam Laporta. What do we do about Mr. Laporta here? So he missed practice on Thursday with an ankle injury. His status is up in the air. So with it being Monday night and the last game of the week, if you are holding him to see if he plays, make sure you either pick up Brock Wright, the backup tight end for the Lions, or you pick up Noah Fant in that same game, tight end for the Seahawks, just to have a backup option. You know, if you have like Jake Ferguson, he's kind of the guy that out of the top tight ends, he's like the guy that's the most realistic you would probably have with a guy like Sam Laporta. But if you do have like a Jake Ferguson, maybe you put him out there just to be safe. But you know, if Laporta misses, I think that kind of just secures the volume for Jameson Williams a little more potentially. But yeah, you need to have a pivot option for Sam Laporta, whether it's Brock Wright or Noah Fant. I would say you could maybe pick up someone in the other Monday game, but the Titans and Dolphins game technically starts at 6:30. The Lions Seahawks game starts at 7:15. You should know by 6:30 if Laporta is playing, but I don't really want to play Chig Okonkwo or Jonnu Smith for those teams, so I would probably just pick up Noah Fant. He is rostered in some leagues, but he's probably available. But yeah, so pretty much there's some options there on the Lions side of the ball that I am excited about. And then we're going to take a quick look at the Seattle Seahawks team here to end off this video. Thank you guys so much for following along with me. Like, I really do appreciate you guys making it this far into the episode. If you are still with me, and hopefully this has been helpful in you know, helping you prepare for the week. So the Seahawks, the undefeated Seattle Seahawks. What's the Lions record? The Lions are 2-1. Vikings 3-0, baby. Let's get it. Let's get it, oh. So Geno Smith, he is a kind of a solid streaming contender this week. The Lions really focus on shutting down that running game. So I think if the Seahawks are able to move the ball, it will be in the passing game. So Geno is a streamer, low quarterback 1, high quarterback 2 type of play. Kenneth Walker, if he is back, he is currently listed as questionable. It's looking like it's kind of up in the air at this point. He did log a limited practice session on Friday. Wait. He didn't. Last week. I was so confused about this report. So last week he practiced on Friday. We still don't know what his status is for this upcoming week. So if he is out there, I'm not even going to say that he's a must start just because he's coming back from that injury and it's a really tough matchup. Yeah, it's looking like it's a toss up right now, and it's really tough too because it's a Monday night game. It's the last game of the week, so you might not have a pivot option unless you picked up Zach Charbonnet, and if you have Montgomery or Gibbs, you're probably starting them regardless. So monitor the news, see what the reports are. It's a very tough matchup. The Lions are giving up the fewest points per game to the running back position. So if he plays, it might be a situation where if you don't have a good pivot option and you still don't know if he's going to play and it's a brutal matchup, maybe you just throw in another guy like on Sunday that is going to play that you're confident in. Because if you have Gibbs or Montgomery for the Lions, you're playing them. And if you have Charbonnet, then okay, you can wait and just start whoever starts, but it could be ugly for whoever plays. I mean, you also have the Titans and Dolphins game, so maybe Mostert is out there. Like if he plays, he's also questionable. Maybe you could pivot to him. Tajay Spears might be out there, but yeah, that is a very, very tough situation. Just with the Monday night timing. But outside of that, if Zach Charbonnet does get the start again, I mean, he'll get the workload, but the Lions are just shutting down the run game. Like James Conner is a great start pretty much every week. He had 3.5 points last week or 3 points last week against the Lions. So they shut it down. So I'm not going to say that you have to, sit here and wait to see what happens and then screw yourself over with the timing of the Monday night game. Like if you have a good option on Sunday and you're waiting on Charbonnet or Kenneth Walker, I'm cool just firing up that Sunday option, even if, technically they may not be as like highly regarded as Kenneth Walker. And then in the receiver room, DK Metcalf is the really solid play that I want to play here. Like I said, the Lions do shut down the run, but they do give up the third most points to wide receivers. So DK Metcalf, outside of that week 1 performance against Patrick Surtain and the Broncos, he's been awesome. 10 for 129 and a touchdown in week 2, 4 for 106 and a touchdown in week 3. Could have probably had more production if they needed to throw the ball in that game against the Dolphins where they were blowing them out. So he's a wide receiver 1 player for me. He was one of my guys. So I'm a big DK Metcalf believer. And then it gets a little murky again between Tyler Lockett and JSN. Week 1, it was Lockett. Week 2, it was JSN. Week 3, it was Lockett. So if the pattern continues, this will be a JSN week. I'm probably looking to not start either if I can help it. Maybe you flex Lockett in a deeper league. And then JSN, you can throw him out there as a flex. I would probably be playing like Jawan Jennings over him. Terry McLaurin, Jameson Williams on the other side of the ball is an interesting conversation, with Laporta maybe not playing. So he's kind of in that range. But yeah, the further we get into the season, the more data we have to make these educated decisions. Right now, there really are just a lot of times guesses based on very limited data. And then really quick before we go, I just want to highlight a few defensive options if you're in a league with DSTs, like I said I would do earlier in the episode. So some kind of top defenses that have good matchups. 49ers at home versus the Patriots. That's a smash play. The Steelers on the road against kind of the mistake-prone Anthony Richardson right now. They are on the road, but the Steelers defense is still great, and I think they can force Richardson into some turnovers. So that's a really great play. And then the Jets have the Denver Broncos at home in New York. So I know Bo Nix looked a lot better last week, but that was the Buccaneers. So now it's a better test against the Jets. Especially if Justin Herbert is inactive. The Chiefs against the LA Chargers is not a bad play. In the Thursday night game tonight, you do have the Cowboys against the Giants. Daniel Jones is turnover prone. He's been playing better. The Cowboys defense hasn't been great, but the Cowboys have owned the Giants lately. So I could see that going either way. You also have that Titans and Dolphins game where Will Levis isn't playing well at quarterback, and then you'll have some sort of not great quarterback play from the Dolphins as well. So I think either the Titans and the Dolphins are both solid plays. The Browns we're kind of going lower tier here, but the Browns against the Raiders with Gardner Minshew, not a bad play. And then another one to highlight, I guess, before we end it off is the Houston Texans I actually like them quite a bit. I'd probably play the Texans over some of those guys I mentioned. Like, I just think they have they have a good matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know they did look bad against the Bills. They've looked bad pretty much all year. They haven't looked that terrible, so I don't think it'll be that bad again. But the Bears do have a pretty nasty defense, and there is some potential there to fluster Trevor Lawrence and get some turnovers, get some sacks. Other than that, I'm not super excited about some plays. Like, the Bears are kind of up there just with all the injuries the Rams have, but Matt Stafford is a good quarterback, so probably won't turn over too much. The Raiders against the Browns, I like the Browns against the Raiders. I like the Raiders against the Browns just because Deshaun Watson has, been playing lights out football. And yeah, those are kind of the main ones. The Rams do get to take on the Bears, but it's in Chicago. And the Rams are kind of banged up. So if you're looking for like a deeper play, they could still kind of fluster the rookie who hasn't looked great, but yeah. Oh, and then if the Vikings, if Malik Willis starts, then the Vikings would be good. But if Jordan Love plays, I think you still can play the Vikings defense, but that does limit their upside, honestly, obviously. Okay, that's kind of the defensive landscape. So just want to also give that to you guys as well. That's going to do it for this episode, everyone. Thank you so much for watching or listening. I really do appreciate it. Please make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you enjoy this podcast. And I will see you guys in the next episode. I believe we're going to do starts of the week pretty soon here. So turn on your notifications so you stay tuned for that. And good luck in week 4, everyone. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.